another episode of the Lei'd Back Life, where we talk about how to love life, entrepreneurship, and improve daily. I'm your host, Jordan Ostroff, and joining me today, the first person ever to be on the show twice, Stacey Brown Randall. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I did not know I was the first person ever. I feel very special. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, okay, so of everything I have ever accomplished in my life, writing a book is the thing that I still can't believe actually happened. So to any of our prior guests, when you write a book and it's coming out, or in this case, your second book, I will have you back on the podcast. It's the least I could do. It amazes me that like this is a thing and Stacey wrote her book a lot more professionally than I wrote mine, which makes it, easier or harder. I don't know. So like, I want to support you. Like I ran a marathon and when I was done, I was like, that's easy. I wrote a book and I was like, how the heck did that happen? How could somebody order this thing? And I read Stacey's book yesterday from cover to cover. It was super easy to read from cover to cover. I only had to stop to take furious notes about all the things I don't do that I need to do from her book. So I'm super excited to have her here. If you don't know who she is, she's got the Roadmap to Referrals podcast. She has her second book coming out. It's all, and everything Stacey does is centered around referrals. So how do you get referrals without asking? And if you're a lawyer who can't solicit business, getting referrals without asking is super awesome because then we're being extra ethical while doing it. So Stacey, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Jordan, thanks so much for having me back. I'm excited. And to think all I had to do was struggle through writing my second book.
For 18 months to be on the show a second time, you know?
I will get right on my third book.
I will see you in 18 months. No problem. So give us a little bit of the story of the book. I know this has been a labor of love for so long, but like walk me through, because your last book is a lot more on direct referrals and this is more like the structure of the business. So like how did that become a topic you wanted to write a book about?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I think makes me different in terms of how I teach referrals, there's a lot of people out there who can teach you about referrals. They focus on the people that can refer you. And usually, right, when you're focusing on the people that can refer you, they're just, it's really like slimmed down to like, there's referrals are a nail and here's the hammer of how you're going to get them and you're going to ask for them. I look at referrals and teach referrals to my clients like they exist in an ecosystem within your business. And it's more than just, hey, this group of people have referred you. How do we get more referrals from them? That's definitely a strategy, and it's what my first book is based on. But they live in so many other places than just like within the specific people, those who are referring you now and those you want referring you. They also live within your client experience. They live within your buyer's journey. They live within like processes and procedures and SOPs behind the scenes of like what you're doing. And there's so many places where people need to have things tightened up or processes and plans in place to support their referral generation to make their life easier, right? Having these things in process and in place makes it easier. When I thought about what would I write about next? So when I made the decision to write another book, then the question is, what will I write about next? It made perfect sense for me to keep explaining it from the ecosystem perspective. And so, my first book is based on you have people referring you. Great. What do you do to get more referrals from those people? But it was also my first book. So it included a lot of other things about like what I believe and why I believe it and the science behind it that supports me and the success my clients have had. And that's one of the foundational strategies that I teach is, hey, you're getting referrals now. Let's get you some more from those people. Another foundational strategy I teach is on this. It's the client experience, and it is different. It's a two objective kind of focal point of a strategy, and it's one you really need to have in place. When people used to ask me about, hey, I've read your first book, so like I just want to get more referrals, and I always had this same disclaimer. And Jordan, you probably remember me saying this. But I always had the same disclaimer. I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to teach you the steps to get more referrals from people who already refer you. But my disclaimer is I'm assuming you're referable. And I always kind of presented it as that. And then I was like, you know what? There's actually a way to make sure you are referable. And that's really what the strategy is on and what the book is about is like, hey, let me teach you how to be referable first, what that actually means, because it's more than the work you do. And then we'll talk about how we can bridge the gap to referrals.
So if somebody was unfortunate enough to not know you and already follow you and they were doing their first entrance, it sounds like it makes more sense for them to start with the second book, build the referable business, and then go to the first book. Is that
You know what? I think the better way to answer that question is it depends on what's happening in their business. If
Okay.
somebody is brand new to me and they're like, where do I start? My first question would be, are you getting referrals now? And if you're getting referrals now, let's just say you're averaging 6 or more referrals on a yearly basis, I would start with the first book because that means you have people referring you, and the first book will help you make ROI faster. I mean, that's just kind of like the basic. If you are already getting referrals and then we can show you how to double that or triple that or quadruple that, we're going to get a faster ROI. And of course, you can like back into everything else. But if you are looking at your business and you're like, I don't really get that many referrals, then I would say the second book, Referable Client Experience, is probably the right place to start from that perspective. Or in some cases, if you're like, hey, I'm getting a lot of referrals and it's great, but I need to tighten up some things that I think are broken in my client experience, well, then let's start with the second book and then work your way to the first book.
It makes sense. Listen, I've grown all of my businesses mostly on referrals, and I love it, especially from a life standpoint. So I wanted to highlight, so basically for everybody in the book, it's like intro story, the BS that everybody has tried to sell you that makes no sense, the way that Stacey does it, and why it makes logical sense. And like I think it's so funny, you actually reference like, hey, there's this article that if there's 25 ways to ask for referrals without seeming scammy, and if you need 25 reasons, it's because all of us feel like it's scammy when you ask. Like it's just so funny. But in chapter 2, Brian Stevens has a quote. I wrote down the quote: when I started listening and built a client experience based on what I heard, work didn't feel like work or a hustle. I enjoyed it. So I want to talk more about that part. Like, what was it that helped Brian and other clients enjoy their business now?
Yeah, so here's the thing. Well, there's a lot of pieces, as you know, to like running a business successfully. And then there's like running a business successfully, and then there's running a business successfully that you actually enjoy, that gets you to enjoy it in a life, right? I mean, those are actually two totally different things. And so I think when things start to feel easier, that's at the moment you can start to enjoy things more. And so in Brian's case, right, what he discovered was that when he was started listening to his clients and figuring out what their pain points were, and then he started putting things in place to solve the pain points, right? Then he was like, oh, well, that's an easy thing for me to do. It's an easy thing for me to make repeatable and to make part of my client experience process, and my clients love it. And at that point, he was like, and that just made everything easier. It doesn't mean he didn't have extra work to do. He still had to make sure that, when we go on and explain the story as to what that meant for Brian. But like once he made that a part of his process, it fit so much of what his clients needed that everything became easier. And here's the thing, when your clients love you, that doesn't mean they're going to refer you, but they're never going to refer you if they don't love you first. So we've got to get that client experience down before we worry about getting referrals. But when you start generating referrals, that makes everything easier too. There's still work to do, but you should make it a repeatable part of your process and then be able to generate those referrals. I think it's that ability to like when you see how things impact your clients and you know it's something that you can make repeatable, not a one-off specialty case, it just makes everything easier.
My book, Love Your Law Firm, takes my journey and gives you the practical steps that I took, as well as some things that I did to avoid. Now, in the second edition, though, we incorporate some stories from a bunch of my coaching clients, so you have a more well-rounded understanding of what it will take to run a great law firm. That being said, because I'm a lawyer and we wrote this for lawyers, I was told I have to provide a warning for the book. Reading this book could cause excessive delegation and might ultimately end up with you enjoying running your own law firm. I hope you'll check it out in the link below. Well, so I want to dive into that. Last week we had Hunter Garnett on. He's a PI attorney in the South. He talked about like sharing your authentic self, and so like putting himself out there in his communities has then like attracted the right clients. You're talking about like the business being referable and making it fun and enjoying it. How much of that is the individual owner? How much of that is Brian putting part of himself into it versus the business being separate from that?
So I mean, I think you have to have both, right? I
Okay.
mean, I think that this isn't an either or how do these two things like run parallel? I mean, they probably do run parallel. It's not a like I got to do this or this. It's like both, right? Like, and you and I had this whole conversation before we hit record, right? There's like certain things as you were reading the book, you're like, oh, that's so Stacey. That's classic Stacey, right? Because I
I could
am,
hear your voice in my head in so many of the sections in a good way.
I hope in a good way, but like, because I'm going to be like, this is who I am, right? This is how I show up. This is my authentic self. And like what I do, like in terms of how I show up on social media versus how I show up on my client calls, like I am me. Like there isn't a facade behind that. And I think that's important. But I think when we're kind of parsing it apart to look at your client experience, it's not really about you anymore. It's not about you as the business owner. It's really about your clients. And it's understanding what your clients are feeling and what they're going through and meeting them where they are as they work through your client experience, depending on the stage that they're in. And of course, showing up authentically as you do that. But the focus isn't on necessarily how do I guess the question is, it's not how do I show up authentically in this stage of my client experience, but it's how do we show up for our clients based on what they're going through during this stage within our client experience.
But isn't there, so I get that it's not about us, and I think you do a really good job like positioning you as the business owner reader in their different roles throughout the process. But I feel like there has to be some semblance of alignment, right? Like if I had
Yeah.
for my coaching clients, for their, welcome to coaching with me, if I sent them a three-piece power suit, like that's not alignment for me, even if they want it. If I sent them like a really cool Hawaiian shirt, like that would be, so so where do we draw that line? Where do we find that balance? How do we find that alignment? I don't know exactly what my question is, but I'm trusting you to give us some actionable insight here.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Um, what you're talking about is sending something that's representative of the business, the three-piece suit versus the Hawaiian shirt, right? And if that made sense in what you did with your clients, that could definitely be something that you do, that is kind of like that feel good. But let's be honest, sending a Hawaiian shirt versus a three-piece suit is more from what I would call like that promotional part of your client experience, right? And there's nothing wrong with promotional parts of your client experience. When I was a productivity coach, I used to send koozies to my clients that on the one side of the koozie, and it was, of course, in my brand green. It wasn't in their colors, it was totally in my colors, but it was in brand green. And then the front of the koozie would say, "You are successful." And then you flip it around and it would say, "Sometimes in spite of yourself." Right. Like, and it was very much, I mean, it's a koozie. I hope they use it, whatever, but it was very much what I did from a productivity coaching perspective of letting folks know, like, you can still be successful and still need what I do. Right. You can be successful and still, it's the same thing. People can have massively successful law firms and still need what you do to help them figure out how to live the life that so they don't have burnout and that they enjoy that, what they do. And so it's the same kind of thing when we're talking about our client experience. I think we're talking about two things that operate parallel and are both good, right? You're talking about doing things from that authentic of like showing up of who you are from your business and representing your business through one of the outreaches you're going to do, which I think is great. I'm talking about looking at that from the perspective of what your client needs based on what they feel and are going through. That's not to say one cancels out the other. It may very well be both. It's just like, but when do those things happen in the client experience?
But is there a business that can be referable without the owner or the person with the most touch point with the client not being individually referable? Maybe that's my question.
Okay, so then that now I think that we're getting to the place of talking about whether you like a likability factor.
Okay.
I mean, sure, right? I mean, that exists. I don't know if people who aren't likable don't know that they're not likable all the time. And I think different people are like attracted or not attracted to different types of personalities and different folks, right? From that perspective. There are definitely people who I am not their cup of tea. Right. That's very much I'm not their cup of tea. And there's other people that I've worked with. I'm like, oh, you are not my cup of tea. Right. And so I guess on some level, the likability factor, the trust factor, the am I going to refer you factor exists. You can do business with a company and get the results they said that they would get you and not feel a certain way about that business that would make you then want to refer them. That happens every day, all day long across most small businesses. And what I'm trying to say is we need to bring in a relationship building aspect to your client experience so that you can become referable, so that you can then get referrals. But I can't overcome people who are just like, hard to be around and really super difficult and don't have the personality.
But so like your whole so much of the book is centered around the feeling the client has or helping them have the right feeling. But how individualized is the method of that feeling from the business side? Like, all right, let me be more specific. So Brian Stevens was the realtor who sends the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So can any real? So I'll back up for a second. So in essence, it was like when people move, it sucks to pack things. So like if we send boxes to them for each room, now it's easier to pack. Can any realtor do that and have the same impact, or are there specific things about Brian and Brian's company that makes that help the client have the right feeling from getting those packages for the purpose of a referable client experience?
So, no, I mean, the thing about the boxes is any agent can do it. And what a client is going to feel when they receive it is be like, what, he sees me. He gets what I'm going through, right? What I want people to understand, business owners to understand when they're thinking about their clients is that they have emotional reactions during different stages of working with you. And there are things that you can do to meet them where they are, right? Whether that is to like be like, hey, I see you. I know this is happening. It's normal. Or let me help you solve this problem. And instead of it feeling like just another work thing you're doing, it feels like it's a more of a relationship building thing that you're doing because you're meeting me where I am and you're helping me with something that I didn't see coming. And that's the other piece of a referable client experience. It's kind of doing things that I just didn't see coming. I kind of expect if I work with a real estate agent that at the end of the day, I'm going to have a house that I've either bought or sold. Right. But it's all the other things that kind of happen along the way that drive how I feel about you. And that is what I will then communicate and remember and will extend or not extend based on how I feel. And so I think that's the piece to keep in mind. Some of the examples that I give in the book, other people can pick up like, that's great. I'm taking that. I'm using that. They'll probably still put their own personality on it, their own language behind it, when they do it, at what point they do it. But the truth is, most businesses, when you're in the same industry, clients kind of start to feel the same way. Like there are clients, for the most part, it doesn't matter which estate planning attorney I'm working with, I'm going to have probably the same feelings working with any of them when I'm making the decision to do my will, right? I got to make decisions about my children and will it come out in the will who's really my favorite? Okay, that's not true. But like me feeling that way has nothing to do with
Depends
which
upon the
attorney.
will.
Well, we'll see. But like me feeling that way has nothing to do with the attorney I'm working with. It's the fact of what I'm doing with that attorney that's evoking those emotions.
So, I mean, this part's not so much in the book, but like from an ideal client avatar perspective, from the different ideal client, is that going to change the feelings the client goes through during the process to impact what a business has to do for a referable client experience for their ideal client?
Yeah, I mean it's not a perfect, right? It's not perfect where every client shows up and they're all the same way and they're all going to respond the exact same way to what you're doing. We're not trying to do that though. Like that is a
Okay.
recipe for disaster and burnout, and you won't be successful. So don't do that. What you're trying to do is acknowledging as your clients move through the three stages of the client experience that you are recognizing what they're going through and you're meeting them where they are, or you're maybe doing some things to surprise and delight that they don't see coming. That would be awesome for them to really feel and build that relationship. Some clients will have the experience you want them to have perfectly to a T. Others will have parts of it and others won't. And this is the one thing I say that I know is like taboo in today's language, in today's world. Like sometimes a client not having the experience you want them to have is actually the client's fault. And it's not the business owner's fault. I know we say the client's always right. Actually, they're not. And always saying that sets us up for success. I mean, sets us up for failure and not success. So, yeah, I mean, will someone's personality, will they engage differently with you versus others? Sure. You see that when you get on a call with a client. Some are like bubbly and talkative and and you have this great connection. And others are like, I'm busy. Let's just get down to the nuts and bolts of whatever this client meeting is about. that doesn't detract necessarily from how they feel about the client experience. It has more to do sometimes with how the business owner perceives how they are feeling in that moment of that relationship.
What if the secret to law firm success involved doing less? That's one of the main themes of my book, Love Your Law Firm, where I dive into my story as well as the stories of multiple coaching clients in an effort to help you design the law firm that you've always dreamed of. Hope you'll check it out at Amazon in the link below. I think you do such a good job like setting the foundation, setting the framework, and then you've got, the example of the realtor. I think there's a couple examples for like business attorneys, estate planning attorneys, but then like giving people the bandwidth to build their own stuff off of that framework. And I think like that's the part where I took the most furious notes from the book was like, oh, for me, this is the thing. And so like I guess maybe that's the part where people work in more of their uniqueness, their unique selling proposition, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, here's the thing. I've been doing this business now for 12 years. I've been working with the clients in 14 different countries all around the world, helping them generate referrals without asking. And I have finally gotten to a place where I feel like a grown up, where I'm just like, you know what? Like the work that I do with my clients I don't work best with clients who are like, just give me the cookie cutter approach, tell me what to do in 3 steps and send me your easy button. Like that's just not how this works. And that's okay, right? You can have like anything that provides, I would say like easeability on the back end usually requires some work on the front end, right? Anything that's going to be a system or a strategy that you're going to be implementing, it's going to be amazing. You probably had to build that strategy or system in the very beginning. And so I do want clients, right? And I want it for my readers too, that are going to read the book and be like, let me just sit with this for a minute and figure out what would actually work best for us. That example there, we'll never execute on that. It's too much work. But that one, I actually can take that and I would do it a little bit differently and I would do this. And this works well for me. So that's how the book is written. I am absolutely going to get reviews where people are like, she didn't tell me exactly what to do. And my response to that is always, you're right. I'm not going to, because you need to be a business owner and be a grown up and think through these things for yourself. And also, I'm not going to do that for like, what is the cost of this book? $17.95? Like, I mean,
Well, in 140 pages, like
right.
to,
And
to
right.
write it to 8 billion different businesses to do like,
It would never work like that. Yeah.
well, and I think so from what you're saying, my favorite part about that, you're talking about like alumni clients, the alumni section, and like you really go into staggering it across years, figuring out your budget, those things. Can you talk a little bit more about your alumni section?
Yeah, so let's keep this in mind because not everybody is going to have all 3 stages of the client experience. The client experience is broken down new, active, alumni. Alumni is my term for past or previous clients. I just think that it's a better term because you think about your clients differently when you call them alumni versus past. And so that's one thing to notice. Not every business, though, goes to the alumni stage, right? So if I'm an attorney and my clients put me on retainer forever and ever and ever and ever, then I always stay in the active stage. I go new, active, and my active becomes ongoing. And I do need to address the fact that you can now then be working with me 5 years later and what that looks like, right? But for some businesses, they are going to, the deal is going to close. The will be done, right? The house will be sold. And eventually your client will move to the alumni stage. This is the stage that I think in some cases gives people the greatest level of heartburn because it's like the world is your oyster and there is probably a million different things you should do. You shouldn't, but you could, right? And so because there's all these opportunities, the framework that I think helps people kind of think through making this manageable is first of all, what is your volume? On your alumni stage, are you filtering in 12 new people every year or 1200? Is a big different conversation on how we're going to treat our alumni clients and where we're going to use, efficiency type measures, right, that are going to be more automated in nature versus some things that we have some flexibility that we don't have to worry about that as much. But I think when you look at that alumni stage, it's like having a few key pieces in place that you're doing for your clients and then deciding at what point they start dropping down or dropping off from receiving those. So like if you have 4 touch points that are going to happen for your alumni clients after you're done working with them that keeps you in touch, that keeps you top of mind. And, it could be as simple as your Christmas card. And I'm saying 4 things on top of if you send them an emailed newsletter that maybe your alumni clients start to receive. I know people do that. It's fine. I do it. But I look at like, if you want to have some different expectations of commitments from those alumni clients, you got to show up a little bit differently and a little bit above and beyond that. And so from that perspective, it's looking at, so what are those things going to be? And maybe for a couple of years, they get all 4 and then they drop down to 3 and then 2. And then maybe at the 7-year mark, if they're no longer receiving anything, if they haven't started to refer or they haven't come back to be a repeat client.
But see, like that's the part where I almost like to use the business lawyer as an example. So let's say like this business works with them for 5 years and then they get big enough to bring somebody in-house, they get acquired, they close down the business, whatever it is. I love the way that you frame, especially from the realtors with the years for buying. Like, I would still have an alumni stage for that because then, like, okay, they open up a new business or the merger doesn't work out. Like I think there's so much value in these people that already like you to work with you for so long.
Yeah. And that's why you've got to be willing to show up a little bit differently and do a few different things, right? I also think the alumni stage, though, I just want to give people some grace here. I think the alumni stage is the hardest stage to like get going and maintain long term. Like if I look at my business like super critically, if I look at my business, I'm like, there are some stages that we have locked and loaded. And there are other stages where I feel like we have been locked and loaded and then we've gotten lazy and we have to kind of get back to fixing that. And I think the alumni stage is where that is for most business owners. And whereas it's definitely something we want to fix and solve, I also think it's more common.
I mean, is that like an out of sight, out of mind? We're not working with these people.
For most people, yeah. Or because they're out of sight, out of mind because we don't know what to do. But
Gotcha.
that's why one of the examples I give in the book is sometimes it's connecting the touch points to your alumni clients to something that's happening that also relates to the work you do. But of 4, you're going to do 1 of those, not 4 of those, right? So like it's thinking about how do I show up a little bit differently, but can still connect it to the work that I do because that sometimes makes it easier. Like, and that's one of the things we talk about in the book. It could be a holiday card, and then it could be a something that happens on the calendar outside of the holidays that is related to the work you do, right? And then it could be other things. So you just kind of have to think through it really comes down to what will you keep going.
But the thing, like, you do such a good job. We're talking about, right, the feelings that clients are going through. I would be surprised if anybody watching this who has past clients doesn't have an idea of what those clients are then going through for some amount of time. Like, and I think like that's, to me, it becomes easy, like for the, who are you referring out to after the client works with you? What are you hearing back from clients for the other thing they want you to add? Like, what's the next problem that they have? I feel like you can stand out even more during that process in terms of getting referrals.
Oh yeah, I mean, the other thing is if you want to keep getting referrals from your clients when they've moved into the alumni stage, you're going to have to do these things,
Right.
right? Because you're going to have to be in front of them. I just know that a lot of people are going to struggle with maintaining that. And so the connection point to like, this is how we get referrals, like this is what this looks like, does make it easier for people to be like, oh, I'm going to actually make that a priority. And I'm actually going to try to do those things and try to show up differently. I just don't want people feeling like, hey, I send out an email newsletter every month to my alumni clients and my existing clients and my prospects and my referral sources, and that's all I've got to do, because that's not going to work.
Because it's not personal enough, because it doesn't
Because
scientifically activate the referrals, because
it's the same thing over and over again.
okay.
Right. And if it's the same thing over and over again, sometimes I stop paying attention. And so, what we know from the science of referrals, and particularly from behavioral economics, is that there's got to be some variety for us to even pay attention. Like, I talk about this in the book. I know you've seen the pictures of it, right? That I do a very personalized holiday card every year. And I have had alumni clients in the past that's what they look forward to. And I hear about them from it. Like that's the thing they're looking forward to is like, what is the theme going to be this year? It's actually super stressful for me now because I know that expectation is out there.
And you have that in the book. You talk about like the self burden you have placed on yourself in a very funny Stacey way.
And I would never burden anyone else to feel like they have to do that. But I know it's one of my ways of being different, of showing up and doing it in a way that I'm going to make a Christmas card anyway. I might as well include my alumni clients. Now I do this whole thing where we try to like involve the family and have a theme. And it's funny, like this morning I was getting ready and Norm and I were talking. I was like, by the way, he was like, what? And I was like, it's almost Halloween. And he was like, yeah. I'm like, I don't have a holiday card theme yet. And he was like, oh God. Now he's got like, and now the stress is starting all over again for this year. I was like, I haven't figured out what we're going to do yet. And so
This is year 10?
is it 10 or 12? Yeah, 10. I guess it'll be year 10. We started in 2015.
There we go.
Yeah. So 10 Christmas. I did tell my daughter when she goes off to college, we're probably going to retire the whole thing, but she's only a sophomore in high school. So I still got 3 more Christmases to go. Um, but the idea from that is that it's like being able to show up differently in the alumni stage matters more than I would just say showing up the same way all the time and you're not sure they're actually paying attention to it. Consistency is important. So I'm not saying stop the newsletter. I want to be really clear that people don't hear me saying that. I'm not saying don't stop the newsletter. I'm saying if I've received your newsletter and I haven't been a client of yours in the last 24 months and I keep receiving your monthly newsletter, you probably don't even know because click rates and open rates aren't even as true as they used to be because all the bots of today, right? So you don't even really know if I'm doing it or opening it or seeing it. If you are going to get my attention, you got to do more than that.
Well, and also the news. So like I send a newsletter every week. It's pop culture references. It's Jordan dad jokes. It's GIFs. I get so much feedback from it, but the feedback is always like, your newsletter sounds like you and everybody else's newsletter sounds like ChatGPT. And I'm like, okay, so like I have just like you have put so much of your family into the cards. I have put so much of myself into the newsletters. Like it's that extra uniqueness that I think makes these things more impactful than like, oh, somebody told me to do this.
Yeah, and I think in the rise of AI that's continuing to happen, the things that I teach and the things that people show up with their authentic selves and they are actually more them and less reliant on AI, I think that's going to be, I don't think it's yet, but I think it's going to be a massive differentiator where people are going to start seeking out people who haven't become just a carbon copy of whatever their AI is telling them to say. And so I think that's really important. And I think knowing what so the way I look at it, your business needs all these things, right? Your business needs its own personality and it also needs a client experience that meets your clients where they are. And those two things they exist together, right? And so those two things can exist together. And so people know, like, when you hire me, you know you're going to get me. And that is so much more valuable today than it probably was 5 years ago. It's the same. You're going to get me 5 years ago. You're going to get me today. That hasn't changed. But I think in the rise of AI and people just being like, is this generic advice that's just been ripped off or it's just been watered down or it lacks like that authenticity I'm looking for? I think it does position folks that are really building in a personality that is true. And I think that is really important to do that yourself.
I'm in a bunch of online groups, and there's always these people that talk about how miserable it is for their firm and how much they hate running it. And people give some really helpful advice. But I have not come across a book that incorporates all those things in one place. So I wrote it. Stories of some of my coaching clients. In there, though, you're also going to find our specific meeting agendas. You're going to provide how to put together a marketing plan. I really, truly poured my heart and soul into this book. I hope you'll check it out in the link below and enjoy it and ultimately get a chance to run the law firm you've always dreamed of.
Okay, so I want to dive into that. Like that is the focus of this podcast. We are life first, business second, or uniqueness. And I think that's there. I do want to talk about, so if you're watching this, it's Tuesday, this Friday. Speaking of newsletters, good plug, thank you. Client red flags you shouldn't ignore. So the things that, like when they're yelling at your staff and using curse words and they will never be happy and never refer you, like just don't ignore those things. That's this Friday's newsletter. All right, talk to me more about this part. Like, let me back up for a second. You know the Dave Chappelle Kanye West story? Have you heard that one?
I don't think so, but I'm
Okay,
not really
so
into pop culture. So, be.
that's and I'm Jewish, so to give Kanye West credit is an uphill battle. But so in essence, like they're filming like the first episode of the Dave Chappelle show, and Kanye West gets a phone call. I don't know what the call is about. I don't remember it. But basically, he's like, "Oh no, I'm doing something more fun." And they're like, "What do you mean?" He's like, my life is dope and I do dope S word. Like that's his thing on the thing. And the way Dave Chappelle tells the story, I think like to Jimmy Fallon or something, it's so funny. And like I think that's so true. Like the more you live a fun life, the more you connect with people to get referrals, the more personality you have to put into creating this referable client experience. Like I want to talk through that. Like how do we what's that intersection between us having a good life and getting more referrals and generating them and understanding our clients more? Like how does that all come together?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think on a practical level, right? It's that ability to have processes and procedures and things in place that operate like they are, there's a repeatability factor to them. Not always an automated factor, but there's a repeatability factor to them where that's going to be able to drive and bridge the gap to those referrals. I think that the system starts to feed itself, though, in terms of what you're talking about. When you start receiving more referrals, business starts to feel easier and lighter. It also doesn't mean your referrals increase every single year without dips. And I want to be really honest to folks about this because I think people are like, I'm going to get referrals. I'm going to get 40 this year and 50 next year and 60 next year and the 70 after that. And I have those bar charts and I have that like, we show that of what our clients get when they work with us. But we also show the dips because you will have years where there have been dips, right? And because that's normal, right? It's like, it's no different than the algorithm changing and all of a sudden you're getting no leads, right? It's not much different, but it is different because it's not an algorithm. So I think the way that referral supports people really enjoying their life is making business easier. I think that's like the top line thing that makes referrals make sense for why you would want to invest in generating referrals within your law firm is because it's going to actually make your life better the more business you're receiving by referrals. So that's like top line. But I think once you start having some consistent strategies of how you bring in business and you're a little less stressed about what it looks like, there's also relaxedness, that kind of a relaxed part of you that kind of comes into being. And I think that's important. But that also goes back to that relaxed goes back to like how easy or how hard is it to run your business? And that is actually, I think, a separate conversation from referrals, right? Like I have somebody who went through my referral accelerator with me back in February of this year. You know, business blew up after that. And like now he's like, I'm so burned out. Like I got him referrals. I made it. Like it happened. But he's like, I'm so burned out. And I'm like, that's normal. Let's normalize the fact that you can have a good year and still feel not amazing about your business. Right. And so for him, it was a conversation of it. I don't know how much your burnout has to do with the fact that your business blew up, but that your business runs you to death. And that's a structure of your business, right? Referrals are not the structure of your business. They're actually just what feeds in the revenue, right? And the income, but they feed work into your business. So like you got to do the work when you get the clients. So I think some of this has more to do with how you run your business and not let your business run you. Because when I come along and I pour some gasoline on that fire with more clients, I'm only going to exasperate issues you may already have within your business if you don't have processes in place that allow you to not feel the burnout of today. And I speak from experience on that. Right? Like my business is modeled the way it is today. Like the model of how I work with my clients has been vastly different the last 4 or 5 years than it was, whatever, the 8 years prior or the 7 years prior because I experienced the burnout of I can't take on one more client in this framework. It doesn't matter how easy it is to get that client from a referral. I don't have space for them and I don't have capacity and mental, like not only like physical capacity in the calendar, but mental capacity. And I had to change how my business runs. So I think those are kind of like separate conversations from like, let's get more referrals and make the business feel easier. Because once you start getting more referrals, like I said, it does like we just tip it on some gasoline there for exasperating any issues that aren't solved in your business.
But I think that's too so like totally. Then there's also the fact of like that pulls the attorney or business owner out of what they're doing to get the referrals, right? Like they don't send the holiday cards because they're super busy that time of year. They don't go to the networking event, they're super busy. But then at the same time, on the other hand, or in addition to that, like I don't think anybody wants to refer cases to Eeyore. And so there's a likability component. We've talked about that a couple of times. And those things I think go hand in hand, like having the likability and having the business that lets you get out there and be likable and be present and connect with clients.
Yeah, agree? I mean, here's what I always tell folks. People always ask me this question: can introverts bring in referrals the same way extroverts do? And I'm like, extroverts do not have a lock on knowing how to build relationships. That actually it is irrelevant if you're an introvert or an extrovert, right? If you know how to care about people and you can do that in your own way that is authentic to who you are, then that is most important, right? So personality plays a factor, right? But as long as it's not a detractor, right? As long as it's not a negative, and it's not like, I really can't stand this human, right? Then whoever you are and however you show up in your business is most important for you being authentic. Like, for example, I have an attorney I'm working with right now. It's in my coaching program. And he was really clear. He was like, I'm an introvert. I work in my office. I'm not going to take clients to lunch. I'm not going to take referral sources to lunch. And I don't really know if I want to actually even have to cultivate new people because I have to get to know them and build relationships. And I'm so glad he asked all those questions before he joined my program so I could manage his expectations. And I was like, great. Okay, listen, I have 20 strategies that I teach. You're not going to learn them all. We're going to carve out the ones that work for you. We're going to put them in place. And you need to recognize that you're not going to do some of these other ones because they don't fit you, but you don't get the results that come from them either. And you have to understand that. And he was like, good, done. And he signed up, right? He came into the program. And every time he has a question about, you say this in the training, but I want to do it this way, we have a dialogue because my clients have access to me. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point. We're going to modify it to fit who he is and his personality. But that doesn't mean he cares any less about his clients. And it doesn't mean that he cares any less about having that referable client experience. But it does mean it looks different and he's built it differently in his practice.
I like that you framed it that way. Because like whenever anybody talks about the introvert extrovert, I think of my wife. Like, I'm super extroverted. She's introverted. We'll go to an event. I'll talk to 20 people. My wife will be like, I just made a new best friend. We're going on a week-long vacation in 3 months. They're the godparent of Benjamin now. Like, and she will just connect with that one person so well. And then of course that person will send more work to us and we'll connect with her longer than like the 20 people that I had a 5-minute conversation with.
Yep.
But it's interesting also like all right, I'm not taking these people out. So what other strategies can I do? It becomes fascinating. But like I try to explain to people that like, we talk about enjoying the journey, but like nobody talks about what that means. And I think this is so much of that, right? Like when you have clients you like, when you have a business that is supporting you financially, but also like with the work being handled, like when those things happen, it's so much easier to stay in the game and enjoy the journey versus, Sisyphus pushing the boulder uphill all day to have it roll back down at night.
Yeah, I think the other thing though we don't talk about is understanding that I don't care how great your business is, it's going to have highs and lows. And it's actually normal. Like I think we need to normalize people having like highs and lows in their business and it being like, and sometimes it's not anything you did. Right? Sometimes it's not because you're not good all of a sudden at being a business owner. Like they're just highs and lows in running a business. And it's like a salesperson who works for a company. Some years you have great sales years and some years you're like barely hanging on. And it's not necessarily because you all of a sudden suck or failed at what you're doing. Like there are things that happen in life and in the economy and in the marketplace and that happens within industries that there are always going to be highs and lows to running a business. And thinking that somehow you're going to avoid that is actually, I think, what sets people up for failure because you're not going to avoid it. The question is, do you have the things in place to help you just get through it when those things happen? And I think that's not talked about enough in business.
Ooh, to just get through it. That's a good direct wording.
Yeah, like let me give you a personal example because I think this will be helpful. So a lot of people, if you're not in my inner circle of my clients or like listen to every piece of content that I put out in the world, you probably would not know that in 2023 I had back surgery. Right? I didn't make it a big deal when it was a big deal. When it was happening, right? Like I spent like my clients don't know this, but I spent like about 4 to 5 months on bed rest, right? But I had ways of working around it and I made my business work and I did what I had to do. And I kind of just got through it. And then I had back surgery and I'm like, this is amazing, right? Best reason ever to have back surgery. And I recovered and my business didn't miss a beat. And I had one of my better years in business. And I could have also had one of my worst years in business and that would have made perfect sense, right? Like, I think it's that idea of recognizing that in January of a brand new year, everything's like shiny and bright and fun. Woo, it's going to be this great year. And then shit, it's going to probably, I don't know if you have a clean show and I just cussed,
We're
so
good.
I apologize.
Explicit,
Right?
no problem.
Right. So like bad things may happen that you don't know that are coming in March or they're coming in September. And like, it's the ability to recognize that as a business owner and like keep yourself in check in terms of this is normal and I can get through this is different than recognizing every year is a dumpster fire and I need to solve some problems in my business to stop these problems from showing up every year the way that they do. Like I don't need back surgery every year, but I had to get through and figure out 2023. I kind of call it the lost year, even though it was one of my better years in business. And it's a constant reminder of I did less and made more. And that is a reminder that sometimes when I get into the, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. What's happening? Like, no, actually, went and laid in the bed for 4 months and still had one of my better years.
Well, I like that yours has that story. Like I ran a PI firm in 2020. So personal injury law requires two things: people driving and then the power of the court system to get them a recovery. So like March 11th of 2020, all those things went away for a very long period of time. It was not a great year financially, but we got through it. Like you said before, and it made me realize how great of a team we had, and it brought us closer together. And the fact that we survived it, we're like, what else can be thrown our way than the two things that we use to make money being removed from society for some amount of time.
And lots of people will experience that, and it won't take a pandemic to do it, right? Like I've had those moments, right? There's definitely been like, whoa, this year is not looking like last year. Like that sucks. That's not great, but like, and something external happens that causes you to adjust. Like that's what it means to run a business.
Well, and when you're getting referrals, when you like the clients you work with, when you have a business that is supporting future referrals, it's easier for those things to be a season instead of your life forever.
Right. Very true.
All right. So let me talk about our next episode. We'll come back for a wrap up. So next week we got Matt Burke on. Matt's the founder of Zillametrics, a law firm, digital marketing agency, and software company that helps lawyers 2 to 10x their revenue, run a better business, and create more leverage in their law firm using proven growth strategies that have helped hundreds of entrepreneurial attorneys. Plus, Matt's just a really cool guy, and so I'm really fascinated to hear his take on how, like, similar to the stuff Stacey talked about, right? Like we have automation, we have technology, but like still putting that personality and things into it, obviously in a very different way than referral stuff. So that'll be next week. All right, Stacey, in our last 3 or 4 minutes, any final nuggets of wisdom, biggest takeaways? And then of course, I want to pitch the book. I read it yesterday, guys, cover to cover, everything. I only put it down to take furious notes about all the things I failed to do. So please don't read it in one day. You don't have to do that, but I wanted to have it read before I got the chance to interview Stacey about it. So
yeah, the thing that I would tell folks is if you decide to buy the book and read it, I am going to teach you in a step-by-step format. I'm going to explain things to you. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to have you understand why something's important. And I'm going to give you space to think about how you want to improve that section of your client experience. But the one thing I want people to take away from the book is understanding that before you can bridge the gap to start receiving referrals, you better make sure you're referable. And that means to having a referable client experience means that that's how your client feels when they're doing business with you. And that is more than the work you do. It is actually beyond the work you do and the relationship you build, because usually the work you do creates logistical type, logical type emotions and feelings, but how you make the client feel is what they talk about long term. And that is where we have to have a baseline to start from to generating referrals. So I know there's some people who pick up the book and be like, I'm just going to read section 3 where she talks about referrals. And I'm like, it's still not going to work because you didn't do sections 1 and 2.
Seriously, Stacey won't say it this way. Just go buy the book. It's $17.95, and it will give you all these things in the right framework, in the right order, in a digestible way. And then there's also a workbook that will take you through all the stuff very specifically. Like if the average value of your cases is $5,000 and you close 80% of your referrals, and a couple hours with the book and following through will get you 2 leads, 2 cases, it will be phenomenal ROI. Plus, it'll be enjoyable. Like I hope nobody gets out there every morning and it's like, man, I wish my business wasn't worth getting referrals, right? Like I hope nobody says that.
Agree. Yes, I agree.
So where can people get the book and the workbook? And you're doing a masterclass for the kickoff. Like, just let us know.
Yeah, so just go to the book website, referrableclientexperience.com. Depending on when someone is listening to this episode, any of the special bonuses that we are offering are going to be right there on the referrableclientexperience.com website. So you can see everything about what's available. And then, of course, depending on if you're listening to this later, it will tell you right where to go to order the book as well. Wherever you want to purchase the book is where you'll be able to grab it. And if you're like, hey, I just want to dip my toe in first and check this out before I decide to go spend my $17.95, as Jordan said, you can also download a free chapter as well right there and kind of check it out before you decide to go deeper.
Just go buy the book. I read 150 plus books a year. Most of them do nothing for me. This is not one of those. I don't read most of those books in a day. I guess on average it takes me 2 days to read most books. So you beat that. If it helps, this episode's going to drop on October 28th.
Perfect. Yeah. So anything if they're listening on October 28th and they go right to referrableclientexperience.com, all the offers will still be available. There is one that will expire on Halloween on October 31st, and that's how you can get a free workbook. But the other offers will be there, including information on the masterclass that you mentioned.
Awesome. Stacey, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you to everybody who watched and listened to this. Seriously, I don't have an episode coming out for another week. You have plenty of time to read at least some chapters and implement some stuff like that. The fact that the book is so implementation focused. Here's the framework, do it, stop right now and write it, do it in the workbook right now, and then put the stuff in place, please. Thank you. That you will find so much success. Thank you, Stacey, for this. The 18 months labor of love is going to help so many people.
Thank you, Jordan.
All right. See you all back here next week for Matt Burke's episode. In the meantime, go buy the book. It's that simple.